What's up? What's up, chat? How you guys doing? What's up, Flash Ops? Hey, Streety McMeaty, what's up? Hey, Losh, glad you could join. What's up, Hope? Hey, Lena. Nikki, good evening. Glad you could join. Hey, Ami9999. You think I should sing a song for every minute I'm late? Am I late? I'm not late. It started at 5:30, right? It's now 5:31. I'm pretty sure I started at 5:30. What's up, Didi? Hola, Brazil. Hi, from America. What's up, Andre? Oh, Losh, you got your Wi-Fi up? Awesome. I bought a new computer, you guys. Yeah. Um, this is not the new computer, so I haven't. It hasn't come yet, but I bought it. It's shipping, so it should come in like next week, which I'm pretty excited about. Yeah, this computer. Okay, so I use Adobe Premiere to edit my videos. Or I used to. Now I have an editor, but I still do some editing. So I used Adobe Premiere, and unfortunately, my computer is like 10 years old. So a lot of the stuff doesn't work with my old graphics card. So like when I can't even use the new Adobe Premiere software because it doesn't because my graphics card is too old. So yeah, so I have to use like an older version of Adobe Premiere. Anyways, so I finally bought a new computer. Yeah, I was looking for some nice graphics cards, but but there's a shortage, right? So there's like I couldn't find any new graphics card. So all of the 3060s, 3070s, 3090s, or 3080s, all of those are like totally gone, right? You can't get them. The only way you can get them, there is one way you can get them, is if you buy a whole new pre-built computer, then that's one way you can get them. So that's what I did. Bought a new computer. So it's coming next week. I'm excited. Dun, 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 dun. PC gamer. Well, I don't play games, but it's good for editing. Like you need a nice graphics card and drawing and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I got the 3070. It's like what is it called? RTX 3070, the GeForce one. That's supposed to be a good one, I think. Yeah, you can't buy it outside now. You can't. Like if you buy it, like those things go for $1,000 or like $900 or something like that. It's crazy. Do I draw my own animations? Yeah, I draw the illustrations. I used to do everything by myself, but now I draw the illustrations and I give it to my editor, and then he puts it all together. So we work together with that. Yeah, which saves me some time, which is good. You're trying to custom your very old PC. Well, it's good to build your own PC, right? I would have done that if I had a chance to buy a new graphics card, but I didn't. So I just bought a brand new computer, like a pre-built computer. All right. So okay, I got some snacks. Check it out. Yeah. So it looks like I'm gonna be eating some. What is this? It's like little boobies. They're called potato starch cookies. All right, let's see how this tastes. Oh, check it out. Oh, they're like little cookies. Not bad. I mean, nothing to write home about, but not bad. It's like a little bit starchy, a little bit sweet. I'm giving it a, I don't know, 6 out of 10. Whoa. They're not marshmallows. They're hard, like cookies. Oh, you guys know that snack? Is it good? They're pretty good. That's right. All my videos are filmed live. I'm actually a real cartoon. I'm a cartoon avatar in real life. That's true. Thanks, Nikki, for explaining that. They're called mini buns in China? Okay. That's a cool name. They're more like mini boobs, no? It looks like it. Oh, hold on. There you go. Just popping in to say your channel has taught me and my husband so much. Helped us bond through the tough times. Thank you, Laura. Well, that's a nice thing to say. Thanks a lot. Glad you like the videos. You're doing East Asian history final right now. Hey, you better focus on your final. What are you doing? Is your final online? Your professor shows so many of my videos. Are these videos really appropriate for the classroom? Or maybe in a college classroom. I don't know if they're appropriate for, I don't know, like high school or middle school. Some of the topics are not are pretty adult. Ah. What's up, Telinha? Hey, from Tokyo. Hey, hi from the USA. You're doing your final online. Isn't it super easy to cheat on your final if you're doing it online? How do they know if you're cheating or not? You could have like you could have your books right there, right next to you, and the teacher would not know, right? I don't know how you kids do it. Or how teachers do it these days. Isn't it super easy to cheat on your final? All right. Enough eating snacks. These really stick to your teeth. All right. So, what happened in the story last week? It was a pretty big chapter last week. So Zhuo Langchan, right? He fights Yue Lingshan. He beats her, and then he starts fighting. He faces off against Yue Buchun. All right. So during the fight, Zhuo Langchan seems to be winning, and he knocks Yue Buchun's sword into the sky. So he seems like he's going to win. But then suddenly, Yue Buchun attacks viciously with his hands. So he just starts doing stuff with his hands. And Ling Huchang, who's watching the fight, immediately notices, he immediately recognizes that the martial arts his master is using is the martial arts of Dongfang Bubai. All right, and he's like, how did my master learn it? Okay, because Dongfang Bubai is dead, and the Sunflower Manual, that's where his martial arts came from, is also destroyed. So, how in the world does his master know the martial arts of this guy, right? So, Yue Buchun does that, and then he blinds Zhuo Langchan with some needles, and he beats Zhuo Langchan, and Yue Buchun becomes the master of the new combined school. So it looks like Yue Buchun has been, throughout the entire story, a snake in the grass, right? People were worried about Zhuo Langchan, like his ambition, but when they should have been worried about Yue Buchun instead. So Yue Buchun let Zhuo Langchan combine the schools and then seizes it at the last moment. So this was a big reveal moment. So Ling Huchang finally suspects that his master isn't the upstanding gentleman that he thought that he was, right? So he gets a little bit scared. And that's where we left off. How's that? Dun, 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 dun. You feel like he's going to be the new villain? Oh, maybe. Are we going to watch the bridge? Maybe we'll watch the bridge later. Okay. Doop 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 doop. Doop 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 doop. All right, let's get started. Chapter 35, Vengeance, Part 1 of 3. Oh, so we have a three-parter today. Don't think we've ever had one before. It's a three-parter. Chapter split into 3. It might be a short chapter then. The sky gradually got darker, and finally there was no one else around the place of worship besides the Hangshan school people. Remember, this is now after the fight, right? So Yue Buchun has become the headmaster of the new school, right? The new combined school. Martial brother, headmaster, are we also going down? Yihe questioned. She was still calling Ling Huchang as martial brother headmaster, which meant that she did not acknowledge the merging of the 5 schools, nor accept Yue Buchun to be their headmaster. We'll stay here for the night. Is that all right? Ling Huchang felt the further away he was from Yue Buchun, the better it was. Also, he did not wish to see Yue Buchun's face again at the Songshan courtyard. Okay, so he's a little bit scared of his master at the moment. When he said this, the female disciples of the Hangshan school cheered happily. They all actually felt the same thing, and no one wished to go down. Back in Fuzhou, they had asked Huashan School to help their martial elders who were in trouble, but in spite of the motto, 5 mountains sword schools, same route, different branches, Yue Buchun flatly refused to help them. Hangshan School's disciples had always kept this matter in their hearts. At the moment, everyone was still feeling angry that Ling Huchang had gotten injured by Yue Lingshan, so from the combination of all these together, they all refused to accept the fact that Yue Buchun had snatched the leadership of the 5 Mountains School. Thus, staying by the place of the worship for the night was agreeable to them. Martial brother headmaster can't move too much, so staying here is best, Yi Qing said, agreeing with Ling Huchang. But this big brother... As she said this, she glanced towards Ying Ying. This isn't a big brother, Ling Huchang laughed. She's young Lady Ren. Ying Ying had been supporting Ling Huchong all this time, but when she heard him divulging her identity, she became bashful and quickly stood up to flee for a few steps. Ling Huchong wasn't guarding against this, so his body tipped backwards. Yilin, who was standing beside him, quickly extended her hand to hold his left shoulder and called out, "Careful!" Yihu, Yiqing, and the others all knew Ying Ying and Ling Huchong had a deep love for each other. One of them was willing to risk her life at Shaolin Temple because of love, while the other led a group of Jianghu heroes to attack Shaolin Temple because of her. When Ling Huchong became the headmaster of the Hangshan school, this young lady Run came personally to congratulate him, and she also defeated the scheming of the Devil's sect. It could be said she had done a big favor for Hangshan school. When they heard this big bearded man in front of them was young lady Run, mixed feelings of happiness and surprise rose up. The disciples of the Hangshan school had long regarded this young lady Run to be their future headmaster wife, so when they saw her, they felt very intimate towards her. After Yihu and some of the other disciples took care of provisions such as clear water and meals, they lay down beside the place of worship. Because of his serious injury, Ling Huchong also felt sleepy and exhausted, so he fell into a deep sleep in a short time. In the middle of the night, from somewhere far away, they suddenly heard a female voice shouting, "Who's there?" Even though Ling Huchong was heavily injured, his internal energy was still abundant. When he heard this, he promptly woke up and knew it was a Hangshan school disciple guarding the perimeter, asking someone who was coming up the peak. He heard someone answered, "I'm a disciple from the same Five Mountain School. I'm Headmaster Yuez's disciple, Lin Pingzhi." Oh, it's Lin Pingzhi. "Why did you come here in the middle of the night?" the Hangshan school disciple who was on night watch duty inquired. "I have an appointment underneath the place of worship," Lin Pingzhi answered. "I didn't know you martial sisters are resting here. Sorry for the offense." His speech was very polite. "Little kid, surnamed Lin, you're trying to win by number, concealing your Five Mountain Schools' friends here." An elder's voice came from the west. Oh, wait. Oh, I know who this is. "Are you trying to give me trouble?" Ling Huchong recognized the voice to be Qincheng School's headmaster, Yu Canghai. He was startled and thought, martial brother Lin has an enmity with Yu Canghai for killing his parents. This appointment must be for repaying this blood debt. Blood debt. "I didn't know the martial sisters from Hangshan are resting here," Lin Pingzhi replied. "Let's find someplace else to settle our business so we don't bother their dreams." "So we don't bother their dreams? Hey, you've already disturbed them. But you're trying to be the nice guy now. Like father-in-law, like son-in-law. What do you have to say? Quickly, say it now so we can all go back to sleep peacefully." Yu Canghai laughed loudly. "I don't think that you'll be able to sleep peacefully ever again," Lin Pingzhi coldly said. "When your Qingcheng school came to Mount Songshan, you brought 34 people with you. I made an appointment with you only. How come 3 came?" Yu Canghai looked up and laughed loudly. "Ha ha ha! Who do you think you are? Do you think you're worthy to talk to me like that? Your father-in-law is the new headmaster of the Five Mountains School, so I came here to listen to what you have to say, just to give him face. What do you want to fart about? Let's hear it. If you want to fight, then draw your sword, and let me see your Lin family's evil-resisting sword art. Let's see how much you've improved." Dum, dum, dum. So many internal injuries? What do you mean, Pebbles? What internal injuries? Ling Huchong slowly sat up. Under the pale moonlight, he saw Lin Pingzhi and Yu Canghai facing each other at around 30 feet apart. Ling Hucheng thought, that day when I was injured in Hangshan, this shorty Yu wanted to kill me. Luckily, martial brother Lin showed himself and interfered and saved my life. If that shorty Yu had hit me on that day, how can Ling Hucheng be alive today? Martial brother Lin's martial art has advanced greatly since he joined the Huashan school, but he still won't be at the level of this shorty Yu. He made the appointment here with shorty Yu. Master and master wife must surely be behind him to help. But if master and master wife didn't come, then I can't just stand by and do nothing. Yu Canghai laughed derisively. If you've got guts, then come by yourself to Mount Qingchang to get your revenge, instead of making surreptitious appointments here with me while concealing a group of nuns here to ambush me. What a joke! What a joke! When Yihe heard this, she couldn't hold back her anger and shouted, Whatever love or hatred this kid surnamed Lin has towards you, what's that got to do with our school? You shorty priest, you talk nonsense. You can fight till you die. We're just here to watch. I know you're afraid, but don't drag the Hangshan school into it. She was very resentful towards Yue Lingshan. When you like someone, you like everything associated with that person. When you don't like someone, you don't like anything associated with that person. So by this reasoning, Yihe also detested Yue Lingshan's husband. Yu Canghai and Zuo Langchan had always been friends. Zuo Langchan had personally written 2 letters to invite him to the monastery to strengthen the situation today. So when Yu Canghai came to Mount Songshan at this time, he expected Langchan to become the 5 mountain schools' headmaster. That was why, even though the Huashan schools' people had an enmity with him, he didn't care about it in the least. But who could have thought this headmaster position of the 5 Mountain School was unexpectedly snatched by Yue Buchun? Because of this unexpected event, the Qincheng School didn't feel like staying on Mount Songshan and was going to go down the mountain that very night. As the Qincheng School's party was going down from the Songshan mountaintop, Lin Pingzhi walked up beside him and whispered about the appointment. He wanted Yu Canghai to meet him tonight beneath the place of worship. Even though Lin Pingzhi spoke quietly, he was very rude in his expression and in his choice of words, which made it hard for Yu Canghai to decline. At that time, Yu Canghai pondered, Your Huashan school has just come into power as head of the 5 Mountains School, and yet you've become arrogant already. But you're still green, and the 5 Mountains School might still split up. So I'm not afraid of you at all. But I must protect against your helpers attacking in numbers. With that thought in his mind, Yu Canghai deliberately came to the meeting a bit late to see if Lin Pingzhi had brought a large number of helpers with him. When he saw that Lin Pingzhi had turned up to the peak all by himself, he was delighted. He then brought 2 of the Qincheng School's people to the peak with him, while the rest was dispersed around the waist of the mountain to alert him if anyone was coming up the peak. But when he reached the peak, he saw that there were many people sleeping underneath the place of worship. Yu Canghai inwardly felt miserable and thought, A 30-year-old mother has been defeated by a little baby. I only checked if he brought helpers with him up to the peak. I never thought his helpers would already be waiting at the top. I've already walked into their ambush. Now I have to think of a way to get out of it. He knew that the Hangshan School's martial art wasn't below the Qincheng School's, even though 3 of their senior Shitais had passed away and Ling Hucheng had also been seriously injured, and the current stature of the Hangshan School was on the wane, as they were left with no master hands. There were still a lot of them. If the hundreds of nuns formed their sword formations to attack, the situation could be extremely dangerous. When he heard what Yihe said, he felt relieved, even though she was being very rude to him and insulted him by calling him shorty. The words made it clear that the Hangshan School wouldn't help Lin Pingzhi. It's very good you are not helping each other, Yu Changhai said. There's no harm for everyone to open your eyes widely and watch my Qinchang school's swordplay and see how it compares to the Huashan school's swordplay. He paused for a tick before continuing. Everyone, Yue Buchun was lucky to defeat martial brother Zuo because I don't think his swordplay is very good. Every family and every school in Wulin has its own unique skill. Huashan sword art isn't necessarily able enough to rule the world. From what I see, Hangshan sword art is much better compared to Huashan's. The Hangshan school disciples did not know whether his words had a double meaning or not, but Yihe didn't care about it as she said, Hey, you two, if you want to fight, then fight. Quit yapping your mouth here in the middle of the night, disturbing people's sleep. How inconsiderate. Yu Changhai was fuming, but he thought, I have to deal with this kid Lin today, so I can't settle my debt with you stinking nuns right now. But from today onwards, whenever I cross paths with your school, I'll make sure to give you a lot of trouble. He was a petty person and was used to being arrogant. If the people of the generation below him didn't show much respect and didn't speak flatteringly when they meet him, he would become unhappy. If Yihe had said those words at any other time, he would have blown his top. Lin Pingzhi walked up a couple of steps. Yu Changhai, you've long coveted my family's sword art and killed my parents for it. Even the dozens of people from my Fortune Prestige escort agency were all killed by your Qincheng school. Your blood will compensate this blood debt tonight. My own son was killed by you, pig! Yu Changhai shouted in anger. Even if you hadn't come looking for me, I would have cut you into 1,000 pieces and peeled your flesh off, dog. Were you trying to hide by becoming a disciple of the Huashan school and getting Yue Buchun as your backer? With a ringing sound, he drew his longsword out of its scabbard. It was the 15th of the month that day, so there was a bright moon in the sky. Even though his body was short, the sword was long. The moonlight reflected off the steel like rippling water. The sword in front of his body was trembling. The situation was far from ordinary. The Hangshan disciples all thought, this shorty's reputation isn't a small matter. Lin Pingzhi still hadn't drawn his sword as he walked up another 2 steps. He was now only around 10 feet apart from Yu Changhai. His head was slightly turned, while his eyes were full of fire, observing Yu Changhai. When Lin Pingzhi did not draw his sword, Yu Changhai thought, Phew, little kid, you're very reckless. If I used the flood dragon soaring from the deep blue pool now, you'd have a new mouth 2.5 feet long from your lower abdomen to your throat. But you're a junior to me, so I can't move first. Then he shouted, Still not drawing your sword? He was waiting for Lin Pingzhi to press his hand on his sword handle and start the drawing of his sword. At the moment before Lin Pingzhi's sword was completely out of the scabbard, he would use the move, Flood Dragon Soaring from the Deep Blue Pool, to cut his stomach. Hangshan disciples would then only be able to say his hand was fast, but not that it was a sneak attack. Ling Huchang saw the longsword trembling in Yu Changhai's hand, and he called out, Martial Brother Lin, be careful! He's going to stab at your stomach! Lin Pingzhi laughed mockingly and suddenly rushed forward. His move was extremely fast, as in an instant. There was only a distance of less than 1 foot between him and Yu Changhai. Their noses were practically touching. This rushing move was so strange that no one could have imagined it, and it was so fast that it was very hard to describe. With this single rush, the longsword on Yu Changhai's right hand was now behind his opponent's body, and there was no way for him to bend his sword to stab at the back of Lin Pingzhi's body. Lin Pingzhi's left hand was also holding Yu Changhai's right shoulder, while his right hand was pressing against Yu Changhai's chest. Yu Changhai felt tingling pain on the shoulder well acupoint on his shoulder, and felt his right arm becoming weak. and the long sword dropped from his hand. Everyone saw how Lin Pingzhi subdued his opponent in just one move, and how his hand movements were strange. His movements looked exactly like the moves Yue Buchun used to defeat Zuo Langchan. Even the movement path he had taken was exactly the same. Ling Huchong turned his head around to look at Ying Ying. They stared at each other and cried out quietly at the same time, Dongfang Bu Bai. Okay. So, things just got a little bit more weird. How did Ling Pingzhi know this martial art? How did him and Yue Buchun know this martial arts? Ling Huchong and Ying Ying were staring at each other, and they both saw fear and dismay in each other's eyes. It was obvious Lin Pingzhi's move was the same as the martial art that Dongfang Bu Bai used on that day at Darkwood Cliff. Lin Pingzhi didn't force out the gathered energy in his right hand as he saw the dread on Yu Changhai's face lit under the moonlight. It couldn't be said that Lin Pingzhi was feeling happy, as he felt that death would have come too easily for Yu Changhai if he was killed in just one move. In that moment, from somewhere far, they heard Yue Lingshan shouting, Brother Ping, Father told you not to bother him for now. She was running up the peak as she shouted. When she saw Lin Pingzhi and Yu Changhai standing face to face, she was stupefied. She rushed forward a few steps and saw Lin Pingzhi was holding Yu Changhai's fatal acupoint on one hand, while his other hand was on Yu Changhai's chest. She let out a sigh of relief. Father said Priest Yu is our guest today, and we shouldn't make any trouble for him. Lin Pingzhi snorted and added more internal energy into pressing Yu Changhai's shoulder well acupoint. Yu Changhai's major acupoint became even more painful, but when he examined it closer, he found his opponent's internal energy was ordinary, and there was nothing special about it. It was only painful because it was pressing on his major acupoint. Otherwise, according to the theory of internal energy cultivation, Lin Pingzhi was still far below him. In that realization, he felt sadness and anger mixed together in his heart. Clearly, his opponent's martial art was sloppy, and ordinary. Even if Lin Pingzhi studied for 10 more years, he still wouldn't be his match. But Lin Pingzhi had now taken advantage of his negligence, and his reputation would now be gone forever. Furthermore, Lin Pingzhi wanted to avenge his parents, so most likely he wouldn't listen to his master's order, and thus take his life right now. Father told you to spare his life today, Yue Lingshan pleaded. Are you afraid he's going to run off to the edge of the world? Lin Pingzhi lifted his left palm and slapped Yu Changhai twice. Oh, good job. Yu Changhai was furious, but his enemy's right hand was still pressed against his chest. This youngster's internal energy was not good, but when he exerted his energy, it still shook Yu Changhai's heart meridian. If his right palm were to kill him, it would have been the best thing for him. But the thing he feared most was Lin Pingzhi using a 4th or 5th class internal energy, which would make him dead but not dead, alive but not alive, and make him very miserable. He weighed the importance of the matter in a flash, and didn't dare to move at all. After Lin Pingzhi had slapped him twice, he laughed long and hard before jumping back around 30 feet away. Lin Pingzhi turned his head slightly to regard Yu Changhai. Yu Changhai wanted to pick his sword up, but he considered himself to be a senior, and he was already subdued in just one move. If he foolhardily rushed forward to fight under the eyes of so many people, that could be said like a beggar fighting. Compared to losing the fight, he would be even more ashamed. So even if he took a step across to continue fighting, he wouldn't have taken the second step. Lin Pingzhi sneered and walked away. He unexpectedly didn't pay any attention even to his wife. Yue Lingshan stamped her feet and took a Stamping your feet, really? Like, how old are you? Yue Lingshan stamped her feet and took a glance toward Ling Huchang, who was sitting underneath the place of worship. She immediately walked towards him and said, "Big martial brother, your wound is all right?" As soon as Ling Huchang heard her voice in the beginning, his heart was already racing. At this time, he got even more excited. He stammered out, I... Don't worry, he won't die, Yihe coldly said to Yue Lingshan. Yue Lingshan heard her but didn't listen. Her eyes gazed at Ling Huchang and she quietly said, "When I lost my sword, I didn't mean to injure you." "Yes," Ling Huchang replied. Of course I know. Of course I know. He had always been open-minded and carefree, but in front of his little martial sister, he became very muddle-headed. He said the word "of course I know" for 3 times, not knowing what he was driving at. "Your injury is very heavy. I'm extremely sorry, but I hope you won't blame me," Yue Lingshan apologetically said. "No, I won't. Of course, I won't blame you." Yue Lingshan silently sighed and lowered her head. She quietly said, "I'm going. You want to go?" Ling Huchang's disappointment was evident in his speech and expression. Yue Lingshan slowly walked away with her head down. Just before she went down the mountaintop, she stopped and turned around. "Big martial brother, about the 2 martial sisters of the Hangshan school who came to Huashan. Father said we're being impolite, and we're very sorry. When we return to Huashan, we'll make up for our offense and accompany them down the mountain." "Yes, very good, very good." Ling Huchang watched her as she went down the mountaintop until she disappeared behind a pine tree. Ling Huchang's IQ drops immediately when he sees his little martial sister. True. He suddenly thought of the time on the cliff of contemplation when she delivered wine and meals to him every day. But when she left, he had always been reluctant to part and only managed to utter a few words until finally she shifted her feelings towards Lin Pingzhi, and her feelings towards him changed. When he pondered of the things that happened in the past, he was only making things difficult for himself. Suddenly he heard Yihe coldly laugh and said, "Ha ha ha! What's so good about that girl? Her heart's undecided, and she doesn't treat people with the least bit of sincerity at all. Compared to our young lady Run, she's not even fit to carry her shoes." Damn. Ling Huchang was surprised, and not until now did he think of Ying Ying, who was beside him. He treated little martial sister in such an absent-minded manner. Of course, Ying Ying had seen it all. His face couldn't help becoming hot. But he saw Ying Ying leaning on the corner of the place of worship, looking like she had dozed off. He thought, it's good that she's fallen asleep. This guy doesn't know anything. But Ying Ying was so alert, how could she have fallen asleep at that time? Ling Huchang knew he was lying to himself. He tried to find a few words to say to her, but he didn't know what to say. But to repay Ying Ying, he immediately thought of something. At this time, there were no words that could be said, and the best thing to do was not to say anything. However, the best way would be to lead her thought away from what just happened. So he lied down slowly and suddenly groaned lightly, like he had hit his wound and was feeling painful. Of course, Ying Ying would be worried, so she came over and quietly asked, "Does it hurt?" "It's all right," Ling Huchang answered, and extended his hand to hold Ying Ying's hand. Ying Ying wanted to snatch her hand back, but Ling Huchang was gripping it very tightly. She was afraid if she used too much force, then it'll hurt his wound, so she just let him hold her hand. Ling Huchang had lost a lot of blood and was feeling very sleepy, so he slept deeply not long after that. When dawn broke, the whole mountain was bathed in crimson sunlight. Everyone was afraid to startle him into wakefulness, so no one dared to say anything. Ling Huchang felt his hand was empty. He didn't know how long it was before Ying Ying pulled her hand back, but both of her eyes were staring at his face, looking very concerned. Ling Hucheng smiled at her and sat up. Let's go back to Hangshan. At this time, Tian Bo Guang had already chopped a tree down and made a stretcher out of it. So Monk No Commandment and he carried Ling Hucheng to go down the mountain peak. When their party passed by the Songshan courtyard, they saw Yue Buchun was waiting for them at the entrance, with his face smiling, wanting to see them off. Madame Yue and Yue Lingshan weren't beside him. Master, a disciple can't kowtow to bid you goodbye, Ling Hucheng said. No need, no need, Yue Buchun smiled. We'll talk when your injury is better. I have no one to help me in my position as the Five Mountain Schools' headmaster. Later on, I have to rely upon you in helping me with a lot of things. Ling Hucheng forced out a smile. Monk No Commandment and Tian Bo Guang carried him and walked quickly like they were flying, and they walked very far in just a long time. On the mountain road, they passed by the groups that had come to the meeting at Mount Songshan. When they reached the foot of the mountain, they hired mule-drawn carriages and let Ling Hucheng and Ying Ying ride in them. When night fell, they came upon a small town and saw a tea house shed with lots of people sitting inside. They were all from the Qincheng school, and Yu Canghai was also among them. When he saw the disciples of Hangshan arriving, his face changed color, and he turned his back towards them. The small town had no other tea house, so the Hangshan people sat down on a rocket step on the opposite eaves to rest. Zheng and Qin Chuan went inside the tea house to get some hot tea for Ling Hucheng to drink. Suddenly, they heard the sound of galloping horses, and 2 horses came over with dust flying behind them. When they arrived in front of the town, the 2 horses were reined in. They were 1 male and 1 female. They were Lin Pingzhi and Yue Lingshan. You Canghai, you know I didn't give you permission to rest. Why don't you run away quickly? Are you waiting for death here? Lin Pingzhi called out. Ling Hucheng was on the mule-drawn carriage when he heard Lin Pingzhi's voice. He asked, Marshal Brother Lin has caught up. Qin Chuan was sitting inside the carriage waiting for him to drink his tea. She immediately rolled open the curtain on the carriage to let him observe the happenings outside of it. Yu Canghai was sitting on a stool, sipping a cup of tea in his hand, and did not pay attention to Lin Pingzhi. After he had taken another sip, he said, I'm waiting here to send you to your death. Good, Lin Pingzhi responded. This word good had just been spoken when he had already jumped down his horse, had his sword out and thrust it forward, leapt back on his horse, and with a shout rode away with Yue Lingshan. A disciple of the Qincheng school who was standing on the side of the street had a gash on his chest sprouting blood. Then he slowly fell over. This attack done by Lin Pingzhi was strange and unpredictable. When he dismounted, he had his sword out. It looked like he was going to attack Yu Canghai. When Yu Canghai saw that, it was precisely what he wished for, and he secretly felt happy. He expected that when they fought, he would be able to take Lin Pingzhi's life to avenge for last night's insult. If Yue Buchun later came for him, that was a matter for the future. But who could have thought the opponent's sword would be able to change direction in midair, and fast as lightning killed a Qincheng disciple, then got on his horse to run away. Yu Canghai was alarmed and angry at the same time as he leapt to chase, but his 2 enemies had ridden their horses very fast, and there was no way for him to chase them. Okay. So it looks like Lin Pingzhi's strategy is like torturing this Yu Canghai guy. Like he doesn't want to kill him right away. It's just a freaking torture. So if you notice, the demeanor of Lin Pingzhi kind of changed, right? He used to be like a nice kid before, like a nice I don't know, not someone who would do any kind of torture. But it looks like he kind of changed. The attack by Lin Pingzhi just then was immeasurably weird and unbelievably quick. Ling Hucheng's jaw dropped from seeing it, and he thought, if he used this attack on me, and I don't have a weapon with me, then I'd have no way of fighting back, and I would have been killed. He pondered over the swordplay and knew that Lin Pingzhi's skill was far below him, but the move Lin Pingzhi used just then was so fast, even he wouldn't be able to break it. Yu Changhai was stamping his feet and angrily pointing at the dust left behind by Lin Pingzhi's horse as he hurled abuses at them. But Lin Pingzhi and Yue Lingshan had gone very far. How could they hear his abuses? His whole body was filled with anger, and there was nowhere to vent it. He turned around and scolded. You stinking nuns! You knew that Lin was coming, so you came here first to help him. All right, that animal Lin has run away. Whoever got the nerves, come and fight to the death with me. The number of Hangshan disciples was multiples that of the Qincheng schools. Furthermore, they also had some good fighters like Monk No Commandment, Ying Ying, Peach Valley, Six Fairies, and Tianbo Guang. If they were to actually fight, the Qincheng school had no hope of winning. Yu Changhai knew the strengths and weaknesses of both parties, but he was in a rage. So even though he was experienced and careful, he couldn't restrain himself. Yihe promptly pulled her sword out and angrily replied, If you want to fight, then come. Who's afraid of you? Martial Sister Yihe, ignore him, Ling Hucheng said. Ying Ying whispered a few words to the Peach Valley Six Fairies. Root Fairy, Trunk Fairy, Branch Fairy, Leaf Fairy suddenly flew towards a horse underneath the coal shed. That horse was Yu Changhai's ride. A neighing sound was heard as the Peach Valley Four Fairies separately grabbed each of the horse's legs and tugged hard at them. With a loud ripping sound, that horse was torn into 4 pieces and its internal organs and blood flew out everywhere. It was a big and strong horse, but with just their bare hands, the Peach Valley Four Fairies had unexpectedly ripped it apart. The 4 of them had such rarely seen powerful strength. Okay, well, I'm not sure I agree with that. What did that horse do? That was an innocent horse. That was not cool. Not cool, guys. Qincheng school disciples were startled, and all their faces changed color. Even the people from the Hangshan school were frightened, till their hearts were thumping loudly. Old priest Yu, that Lin has an enmity towards you, Ying Ying said. We're not going to help any party, and we're just going to be spectators on the side, so don't implicate us. If you really want to fight, you're not our match, so why don't we all just save our strength? Yu Changhai was frightened and became timid. So, with a hissing sound, he put his long sword back into its sheath. River water doesn't mix well with well water. You go on your own way, and we'll go our own way. Please, go first. That won't do. We're going with you, Ying Ying replied. Why? Yu Changhai scowled. To be frank, Ying Ying explained, that Lin's sword art is really weird, so we must see it. Oh, you want bells for the horse? Yep. Poor horse. Poor horse, we hardly knew ye. Ling Hucheng was surprised. What Ying Ying just said was exactly what he was thinking about. Lin Pingzhi's swordplay was really weird, and the Dugu 9 swords seemed incapable of breaking it, so he wanted to have a clearer look. You want to see that little kid's sword art? What's that got to do with me? When these words came out of Yu Changhai's mouth, he knew he had said the wrong thing. His enmity with Lin Pingzhi was as deep as the ocean, so Lin Pingzhi wouldn't just kill one Qincheng disciple and give up. He would surely come back to seek his revenge. And Hangshan school people wanted to see how Lin Pingzhi used his sword and how he would kill the people of the Qincheng school. Anyone who studied martial arts would wish to observe other peculiar martial arts out there, and everyone in the Hangshan school used swords, so they weren't willing to just let this opportunity pass them by. But they would be following the Qincheng school, who were like lambs going to the slaughter, and they would see how a butcher chopped them up. From among the people in the world who take advantage of other people, how could anything exceed this? So their plan is just to follow around the Qincheng school, just to see them get killed by Lin Pingzhi one by one. Yu Sanghai was feeling angry and he wanted to say something sarcastic, but he held it in and only slightly snorted. He thought, this little kid Lin is only using some weird moves, and he despicably did sneak attacks on me. And on both attacks, my hand wasn't fast enough. Could it be that he has no real skills? Otherwise, why didn't he dare to fight me openly? All right, you'll follow, and I'll let you see clearly how I'm going to chop that little animal into little pieces. He turned around and returned to his seat under the shed. He picked up the teapot to pour himself a cup of tea, but he heard a ta-ta-ta sound as his right arm trembled, and the teapot's lid rattled. Just then, when Lin Pingzhi was in front of him, he was calm and collected, slowly sipping his cup of tea, and wasn't muddled when facing a strong enemy. But now his heart couldn't help thinking, why is my hand trembling? Why is my hand trembling? He exhorted himself to be stronger and calm himself down, but the teapot lid kept on rattling. The disciples of the Qincheng school thought their master was being very angry. Actually, deep in Yu Canghai's heart, he knew he was terrified. If Lin Pingzhi's sword had been directed at him, he wouldn't have been able to block it. No, this guy is scared. Even after Yu Canghai had finished a cup of tea, his heart was still troubled, and he ordered the disciples to bury the dead disciple in the wilderness outside the town, while the remaining people rested underneath the cool shed. The inhabitants of the town were already scared when they witnessed a person who had killed another person from far away, so they all closed their doors tightly. Who would dare to take a peek? The Hangshan school party scattered into the shop and under the eaves of other people's houses to sleep. Ying Ying sat alone in her mule carriage and was quite far away from the mule carriage that Ling Huchong was riding in. Even though the whole world already knew of the love between Ling Huchong and her bashfulness wasn't the slightest bit lessened. Even when the Hangshan disciples reapplied the medicine on Ling Huchong's wound, she didn't go to have a look. Zhang Yu and Qin Chuan knew her heart, so they continuously told her the condition of Ling Huchong's injury. Ying Ying only nodded her head and didn't say anything. Ling Huchong pondered about the sword move Lin Pingzhi used. There was nothing special about the move in itself, but the move was done too suddenly, and there was no indication that it was going to be executed at all. No matter who was attacked by this move, even if that person was a master, that person would find it hard to counter it. That day on the dark wood cliff, they besieged Dongfang Bubai, and he was just holding a piece of embroidering needle to fight them. But the four of them, who were masters, had no way to resist him. When he thought about it at this time, it wasn't because Dongfang Bubai had a high internal energy, nor was it because his moves were extremely skillful, but it was because his movements were fast like lightning. His attack, defense, rush, and retreat were all completely beyond his opponent's expectations. When Lin Pingzhi stopped Yu Canghai underneath the place of worship, and when he killed that Qincheng school disciple with his sword, his martial art was exactly the same as Dongfang Bubai's, and the thrust Yue Buchun had used to blind Zuo Langchan's eyes. The evil resisting sword art and Dongfang Bubai's sunflower manual had the same source, so he guessed that the move that Yue Buchun and Lin Pingzhi used must be the evil resisting sword art. Alright, so I think he's caught on to what happened. Alright, so the sunflower manual and the evil resisting sword art of the Lin family were from the same source, so they must be really similar, right? And we had this whole story back then that the great master Fang Zhang told us about it, right? All about the past and how the Sunflower Manual was related to the evil resisting sword art. When he thought till here, he couldn't help shaking his head and mumbled, evil resisting, evil resisting. Resist what evil? This martial art is evil itself. Then he thought, at the present time, the only one who can go up against this sword art is probably only Grand Marshal Uncle Feng. After my injury is healed, I must go back up to Huashan and ask for Grand Marshal Uncle Feng's advice on how to break this sword art. Grand Marshal Uncle Feng said he doesn't want to see people from the Huashan school, but I'm no longer from it at this time. His thought then continued, Dongfang Bubai is already dead. Yue Buchun is my master. Lin Pingzhi is my martial brother. The two of them wouldn't use this sword art to go up against me. Then why do I need to go research on how to break it? Suddenly he thought of something and sat up abruptly. As he moved, the mule carriage shook and his wound became really painful that he gasped. Qin Chuan was standing beside the cart and she quickly asked, Do you want to drink tea? No, little martial sister, please ask young Lady Run to come here. Qin Chuan acknowledged his request and went to get Ying Ying. After a while, Ying Ying followed Qin Chuan back. She asked lightly, What's the matter? I suddenly thought of something. Your father once said your sex's Sunflower Manual was given to Dongfang Bubai, so I thought the martial art in the Sunflower Manual isn't as good as the divine martial art your father is practicing, but my father's martial art was shown to be not as good as Dongfang Bubai's. Is that right? That's right. I don't understand why. For people who studied martial art, when they saw a wonderful book of martial art, if they didn't learn it by themselves, they would give it to another person, like their father, their spouse, martial disciple, brothers, or their lovers, and they would probably study it together. To give up on it was really out of the ordinary. I've already asked my dad about this before, Ying Ying said. He said, 1, the martial art in the manual can't be learned. It'll be harmful to learn it. 2, he also didn't know that after learning the martial art written on the manual, the result would be so powerful. Can't be learned. Why? Ying Ying's face turned red. Why can't it be learned? How would I know? After a pause, she went on, What's so good about Dongfang Bubai's fate? Ling Huchang groaned and inwardly felt that his master was on the way in following Dongfang Bubai's path. He had now defeated Zhuo Longchan and snatched the leadership of the Five Mountains School. Ling Huchang didn't like this situation at all. Long live the chief, unify the Jianghu. Those were the flattering words which were often said on the Darkwood Cliff. In Ling Huchang's heart, it seemed it would also gradually become Yue Buchun's motto. Take care of your injury. Don't think too much, Ying Ying quietly said. I'm going to sleep. Yes. He lifted the curtain on the carriage and saw the moonlight shining down on Ying Ying's face. Suddenly he felt apologetic towards her. Ying Ying slowly turned around to go, but suddenly she said, Your martial brother Lin wears a flowery gown. After she said this, she went towards her own carriage. Ling Huchang thought it was strange. She said Martial Brother Lin is wearing a flowery gown. What does she mean? Martial Brother Lin has just become a groom, so he's wearing the gown a newly married groom wears. There's nothing strange about that. This little girl not paying attention to someone's sword art, but instead paying attention to what someone is wearing. How interesting. But when he closed his eyes, he could see Lin Pingzhi's sword moves in his mind. But he couldn't help remembering what kind of flowery gown Lin Pingzhi was wearing. He slept until the middle of the night when he heard horses galloping towards them from somewhere far. Two horses were coming from the west. Ling Huchang sat up and lifted the screen. Out on the street, he saw Hangshan disciples and Qincheng School's people all awake. The Hangshan disciples had formed groups of 7 to form the sword formation, and they were standing still by their position. Some Qincheng people were rushing towards the end of the street, while some were leaning their backs to the wall. They were far different from the calm and collected Hangshan disciples. The two horses galloped through the big street. With the moonlight shining brightly, it was easy to see that it was the Lin Pingzhi husband and wife couple coming. "Yu Changhai," Lin Pingzhi called out, "in order to steal my Lin family's evil-resisting sword art, you killed my parents. Now I'm going to execute the moves one by one to give you a look. Pay close attention." He reined in his horse and flew down from it. His long sword was still strapped to his back, and he rushed towards the Qincheng School people. Ling Huchang paid attention to what he was wearing, and saw that he was wearing a green jade gown with seams threaded with gold, sleeves embroidered with deep yellow flowers, and a gold belt tied around his waist. With Lin Pingzhi's lightning-fast movement, the gown gorgeously glittered under the moonlight. Ling Huchang thought, Martial Brother Lin was originally very plain. Once he became a groom, he has become very different. It's no wonder youngsters are usually proud of themselves. He's taken such a wife. Of course he's very happy, and wanted to dress up a bit. Last night, besides the place of worship, Lin Pingzhi made a surprise attack on Yu Changhai with his bare hand. Now he was doing exactly the same thing. How could Qincheng School let him do it again? Yu Changhai shouted, and 4 disciples immediately went up to meet him with their swords up. 2 swords were aimed at his left and right chest, and the other 2 swept at his left and right legs. Peach Valley's 6 fairies were startled, and they couldn't help shouting. The 3 of them shouted, "Little kid, be careful!" The other 3 shouted, "Careful, little kid!" Lin Pingzhi extended his right hand and with a matchless speed pressed on the wrists of the 2 Qincheng disciples who were attacking his chest to turn their hands around, and pushed on the elbows of the 2 Qincheng disciples who were chopping at his lower body. 4 miserable cries were heard as 2 of them fell over. These 2 people were originally attacking Lin Pingzhi's chest, but when their wrists were pressed, their long swords turned around and pierced their own stomachs. "Evil-resisting sword art, stance number 2 and stance number 3. Did you see it clearly?" Lin Pingzhi called out. He then turned around and galloped off on his horse. The Qincheng people were stunned, and none of them gave chase. When they saw the other 2 disciples, they saw one of them had his long sword slantingly piercing the other's chest from below, and the other person had done the same. These 2 had stopped breathing, but their right hands were still clutching on their sword handles, making their bodies support each other and preventing them from falling down. Ling Huchang saw clearly the way Lin Pingzhi executed his press and push. He was astonished but felt admiration in his heart. He thought, "Brilliant! That's really a sword art and not a hand-seizing technique. It's just that there was no sword in his hand." Ling Huchang is so positive thinking? Maybe. The moonlight illuminated the ground and showed Yu Changhai's short body standing beside the 4 corpses lost in thought. Qincheng School's people encircled him but gave him a wide berth. No one dared to say anything. After a long time had passed, Ling Huchang gazed outside of his carriage again and saw Yu Changhai was still standing there, unmoving, as his shadow gradually lengthened. This scene was extremely eerie. Some of the Qincheng disciples had walked away, and some had sat down on the ground, while Yu Changhai was still standing stiffly like a corpse. Ling Huchang felt pity for him. This master of the Qincheng school didn't know what to do and was just waiting for death, and that made Ling Huchang feel very sorry for him. He gradually became sleepy and finally went to sleep, While dreaming, he suddenly felt his mule carriage moving, followed by some shouts. The sky had actually brightened, and the people had started on their journey. He took a peek from the side of the carriage and saw they were on a very straight road. Some disciples of the Ching school were riding on horseback, and some were walking. Seeing their dejected and withered bodies from the back, Ling Hucheng felt an unspeakable misery surrounding them. They looked like a group of cow and sheep walking to the slaughterhouse. He thought, all these people know Lin Pingzhi will come again, and they also know that they have no way of fighting back. If they scattered to run away, then the Qincheng school will be destroyed. Could it be when Lin Pingzhi goes up to the Mount Qincheng, there will be no one to answer him at the Pinewind Monastery? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, Dongfang Bubai also loved wearing bright colored gowns. Yeah. What's up with these people in their bright colored gowns? At noon, they arrived at a big town. The people of Qingcheng ate their meals in a wine shop, while the disciples of the Hangshan school went to the opposite restaurant to eat. The Qingcheng people were eating quickly with big bowls and big cups, while the nuns all ate quietly. Everyone knew that these people were only living from dawn to dusk and surviving from meal to meal. At the hour of Wei, which is 1 to 3 p.m., they were going along the bank of a river when they heard a sound of galloping horses. Freaking galloping horses. It was the Lin Pingzhi husband and wife couple riding towards them. Yihu whistled, and the disciples of the Hangshan school stopped immediately. With the orange sun beating down upon them, the two horses galloped alongside the river. When they got near, Yue Lingshan reined her horse in first, while Lin Pingzhi continued to come forward. Yu Changhai swept his hand across, and his people turned around to rush south along the river. Give me a 5-minute break. All right, 5-minute break. We'll be right back. What? That song was only like 2 minutes. All right, I'm back. Didn't they shred the sunflower manuscript? Okay. All right, let me try to explain it. Let me see if I remember. So the sunflower manual, right? So the sunflower manual was shredded, right? It was destroyed. But the evil resisting sword art came from the sunflower manual. Remember, it was some people from the Huashan school looked at the sunflower manual, right? The two brothers, right? One guy looked at half of the sunflower manual. The other brother looked at the other half, okay? And they went home, and they started like they tried to recite it, right? And then there was this one monk who came to the Huashan school, and these two brothers repeated what they had read from the sunflower manual off of their memory, okay? And this monk secretly wrote down what they said in his robe, in his monk's robe. Yeah, and then shortly afterwards, he left the temple. He didn't become a monk anymore. He became Lin Pingzhi's great grandfather, I believe, his grandfather or his great grandfather. So that's where the evil resisting sword art came from, right? So it's like another version of the sunflower manual. So it seems like that is why the martial arts are so similar. And so remember, a long time ago, like back a couple of chapters ago, many chapters ago, Ling Hucheng actually found the monk's robes that had the evil resisting sword art written on it, right? He found it, but he got into a fight and he fell unconscious. And afterwards, when he woke up, the monk's robes was gone. It disappeared, right? So we didn't know what happened to it. So now we kind of get an inkling of what happened. Somehow, Yue Buchun and Lin Pingzhi found the monk's robes with the evil resisting sword art written on it. You got that, but will it still make him girly? I don't know. We'll just have to see. We'll just have to see. Yeah. So even though the two martial arts are similar, we really don't know which part is similar and which part is not. So there may be some differences. We're not sure, but I'm sure we'll find out. Shorty, you! Where are you running off to? Lin Pingzhi laughed loudly as he rushed forward on his horse. Yu Canghai suddenly turned around with the sword in his hand. The reflection from the sword was like a rainbow as it thrust towards Lin Pingzhi's face. This attack was unexpectedly very fierce, and Lin Pingzhi was surprised as he hastily pulled his sword out to block. The disciples of Qin Cheng started to encircle him. Yu Canghai attacked faster and faster, slashing high and low. This 60-year-old man attacked with youthful agility, and all of his stances were offensive. 8 Qin Cheng disciples brandished their longswords and surrounded Lin Pingzhi on his horse, but they didn't go forward to slash at the horse. When Ling Huchang saw the situation, he understood Yu Canghai's intention. The strong point of Lin Pingzhi's sword art was in its immeasurable variations and lightning-fast speed. As he was on top of a horse, this strong point was greatly reduced. If he wanted to attack, he would only be able to attack the person in front of him, and the horse he was riding wouldn't be able to retreat like a ghost, to make people unable to grab him. The 8 disciples of the Qin Cheng school formed a sword net as they surrounded his horse to prevent Lin Pingzhi from dismounting. Ling Huchang thought, Qin Cheng's headmaster is really not someone ordinary. This method is very formidable. Lin Pingzhi's sword art changed irregularly, and it was fantastic. But because he was on his horse, Yu Canghai was able to match him. After looking at a few more moves, Ling Huchang's eyes shot towards Yue Lingshan. Suddenly, greatly surprised, his whole body shook. 6 Qin Cheng disciples had already surrounded her and were slowly crowding her towards the edge of the river. They had split open the stomach of her horse, and as the horse fell down, with a long neigh, she jumped up from her horse's back. Yue Lingshan leaned to one side to dodge the incoming 2 attacks and stood firm. The 6 Qin Cheng disciples exerted themselves in attacking, as if their lives were at stake. Ling Huchang recognized Ho Ran Ying and Hong Ran Xiong among these 6 people. Brandishing a sword in his left hand, Ho Ran Ying's movements were very fierce. Even though Yue Lingshan had learned the 5 schools' sword arts engraved on the cave wall on the Cliff of Contemplation, she had not learned the sword art of the Qin Cheng school. The sword moves engraved on the wall on the cave were actually too brilliant, so she actually had not truly comprehended them. It was only her father who had taught her, and she knew the moves only. At the place of worship, she used Taishan's sword art to defeat the masters from the Taishan school and Hangshan's sword art to defeat the master of the Hangshan school. This caused her opponents to be startled, and she took advantage when they were intimidated. But she had no way of intimidating that method to deal with these Qin Cheng disciples. Ling Huchang had seen a few moves exchanged, and he knew Yue Lingshan was unable to resist for long and was feeling anxious. Suddenly, he heard a long cry and saw Qin Cheng disciples had his left arm cut off by Yue Lingshan using a Hangshan sword art. Ling Huchong felt happy, hoping that these 6 disciples would retreat in fear. But how could he have known that 5 of them didn't even retreat half a step, while the one with his left arm cut off crazily charged forward instead? When Yue Lingshan saw his body was soaked in blood and his expression was terrifying, she retreated a few steps in fear. While retreating, her foot stepped on nothing, and she fell down on the gravel at the edge of the river. Shameless! Shameless! Ling Huchong snorted. Suddenly, he heard Ying Ying say, "We also use this method to fight Dongfang Bubai." He didn't know when she arrived beside him. Ling Huchong thought that what she said wasn't wrong. That day on the dark wood cliff, their defeat was guaranteed already. But luckily, Ying Ying attacked Yang Lianting and disturbed Dongfang Bubai's concentration, and this had enabled them to kill him. At this time, Yu Changhai was actually also using the same strategy. Of course, Yu Changhai didn't know how they defeated Dongfang Bubai, but through his wisdom, he had also come to the same idea. Ling Huchong expected Lin Pingjie to have his concentration divided when he saw his wife in danger and to turn around to save her. But he never expected Lin Pingjie to keep fighting Yu Changhai with all his strength and unexpectedly didn't pay any attention to his wife being in danger. After she fell, Yue Lingshan quickly jumped up with her longsword, dancing around. The 6 Qingcheng disciples knew the Qingcheng school's survival, and their own lives depended on whether they were able to kill their enemies, so they all disregarded their lives and rushed forward. The one with his arm cut off had already abandoned his longsword, and he was now rolling around on the ground, trying to seize Yue Lingshan's legs with his right hand. Yue Lingshan was frightened, and she called out, Brother Ping, come, help me." "Shorty Yu wants to have a look at the evil resisting sword art, so I'm letting him have a good look. Let him have a good death," Lin Pingzhi shouted loudly as he used his wonderful moves to suppress Yu Changhai from taking a breather. Yu Changhai had already researched the stances of the evil resisting sword art, and he knew all the moves by heart and decided that there was nothing special about those stances. Suddenly, at this moment, there were so many wonderful variations in the sword art, and it was also done as fast as lightning, making Yu Changhai roar again and again as he got more and more desperate. Yu Changhai knew that his enemy's internal energy was far below his, so he kept on aiming his sword towards Lin Pingzhi's longsword, hoping that Lin Pingzhi's sword would be shaken off his hand when both swords clashed. But from the beginning of the fight, he had not managed to get the swords to clash yet. Ling Huchong was angered and shouted, You! In the beginning, he was thinking Lin Pingzhi was being stopped by Yu Changhai from going over to help his wife. But when he heard what Lin Pingzhi said, he realized that Lin Pingzhi didn't actually care about the safety of Yue Lingshan, and he actually attached more importance to jesting with Yu Changhai. At this time, the sun was fiercely shining down, and Ling Huchong saw Lin Pingzhi sneering, showing his excitement and hatred. It seemed his heart was full of happiness in seeking this revenge. He was like a cat who had captured a mouse and was cruelly playing with it first before biting it to death. But when a cat plays with a mouse, it doesn't have this kind of hatred and malice. Brother Ping, quickly, come! Yue Lingshan called out repeatedly. She shouted till her voice was hoarse as the situation became gravely desperate. I'm coming. Hold on for a while. I'm showing the entire set of evil resisting sword art for him to see. Originally, Shorty Yu didn't have any enmity between us, but he did all the things he did because of the evil resisting sword art. So I'm going to show him the entire set of sword art and let him see it clearly. Don't you think so? Lin Pingzhi replied leisurely. It was apparent he wasn't actually directing these words to his wife, but was directing them more towards Yu Changhai. He was afraid his enemy wouldn't understand his meaning, so he added, Shorty Yu, don't you think so? His body was elegant, and he moved his sword gracefully. His movements were like the moves from the 19 stances of the Jade Maiden Sword that the female disciples of the Huashan school learned. But this move Lin Pingzhi was using had a demonical aura around it. Ling Hucheng originally wanted to watch the stances of his evil resisting sword art. This was a really good opportunity to do so, to do just that, as Lin Pingzhi was now revealing everything in front of Yu Changhai. But he was concerned about Yue Lingshan's safety, even if he was certain that in the future Lin Pingzhi would use this sword art to kill him. He couldn't look further as he heard Yue Lingshan continuously calling out for help. So he cares more about that guy's wife than the guy himself. He couldn't take it anymore and called out, "Martial Sister Yihe, Martial Sister Yiqing, quickly, go and save Miss Yue. She can't hold on any longer." "We've already said we won't help any party. I'm afraid it's inappropriate for us to get involved," Yihe replied. The people of Wulin were especially fastidious about the word trust. Some characters from the unorthodox path, despite their no evil they won't do Wait. What the hell does that mean? Some characters from the unorthodox path, despite their no evil they won't do attitude, once they gave their words, they wouldn't go back on it. If anyone ate his own words, then people in Wulin would despise him. Even Tianbo Guang, who was such a notorious rapist, would abide by his words. When Ling Hucheng heard what Yihe said, he knew it was the truth. Last night, besides the worship place, she already said clearly to Yu Changhai that they wouldn't be involved. If at this time they helped Yue Lingshan, then it would damage the reputation of the Hangshan school. He was still worried and quickly said, This. Then he called out, "Monk no commandment? Tianbo Guang?" The two of them went together with Peach Valley's 6 fairies last night," Qin Juan answered. "They said looking at Shorty Yu is too gloomy, so they went to drink wine. Also, the 8 of them are also Hangshan school." Ying Ying suddenly flew out towards the edge of the river and pulled out 2 short swords from her waist. She loudly shouted, "Look clearly! I'm Divine Sun Moon Sex's Chief Ranzi's daughter, Ran Ying Ying. I'm not from Hangshan school. 6 men ganging up on a girl? This really makes people uncomfortable to see. Miss Run thinks this is unfair, so I'm going to interfere." Maybe using the moves makes you evil? Maybe. Wait, where am I? Ling Hucheng was happy to see Ying Ying going out to help. He let out a sigh of relief, but his wound felt painful, so he sat down inside the carriage. When the 6 Qingcheng disciples saw Ying Ying coming, they unexpectedly didn't pay any attention to her, but continued attacking Yue Lingshan with total disregard for their lives. Yue Lingshan retreated a few steps, and with a puh sound, her left leg treaded on the river water. She wasn't accustomed to being around water, so as her foot entered the water, she became nervous and her swordplay became disorderly. Suddenly, she felt pain on her left shoulder as it was pierced by one of her enemies. The enemy with no arm took advantage of the situation and rushed forward and seized her right leg. Yue Lingshan chopped down with her longsword and struck him at his back as that armless person opened his mouth wide and bit her leg viciously. Yue Lingshan's vision darkened and she thought, I'm going to die like this." She then gazed at Lin Pingzhi, thrusting his sword out while his left hand made a sword form, sweeping across the air to make an arch. The stance he was using was really elegant. It was a sword art which really looked leisurely. She felt a wave of bitterness in her heart and felt really dizzy. Suddenly, she saw a pair of short swords in front of her, and she heard 2 splashing sounds as 2 Qingcheng disciples fell into the river. Yue Lingshan fell down, feeling confused and lost. Ying Ying waved her short swords around, and after more than 10 moves, the remaining 3 Qingcheng disciples had all retreated, after being injured and disarmed. Ying Ying kicked away the dying one-armed Qincheng disciple and pulled Yue Lingshan up. She saw Yue Lingshan's lower half of the body was soaked in the river, so her skirt was all wet, while her gown on top was splashed with blood all over. She immediately supported her to go up the river bank. Yeah, Ying Ying is really a good person. The definition of fastidious? Okay, where is that? The people of Wulin were especially fastidious about the word trust. I think they were very disciplined. Maybe they're very disciplined about it, meaning like they would follow it no matter what. So it means like if they gave their word, then they will follow it to the death, right? They wouldn't break their word. So I guess it means disciplined. Is that how you say it? That is not how you spell it. Very attentive to and concerned about accuracy and detail. Oh. Oh shoot, does that count? That is not disciplined. Oh no, I got the general idea right, but I don't think I didn't get the definition correct. Ah, crap. Oh no. Okay, you guys get a song. You guys get one freaking karaoke song. So fastidious means an attention to detail. Does that even fit here? It should really be disciplined. No, it does fit. Like they're very detail oriented about the word trust. Okay. I guess that works. You won this time, chat. This time. Lin Pingzhi called out, "Have you had a good look at my Lin family's evil resisting sword art?" The sword reflection flashed everywhere and surrounded a Qincheng disciple standing beside his horse when the sword suddenly pierced that disciple between his eyes. Lin Pingzhi laughed out loud and cried out, "Fang Renji, you wicked thief! That death was too easy for you." He lifted his rein and jumped over Fang Renji's falling body and then galloped off. Yu Canghai was already exhausted, so how could he dare to give chase? Don't be a sore loser. Why, chat? Why? Lin Pingzhi reined in his horse and suddenly shouted, "You're Jia Rianda!" Then he galloped his horse over. Jia Runda had already stepped back far away some time ago, and when he saw Lin Pingzhi coming after him, he shouted, and in a mad rush turned around to run away. But Lin Pingzhi just patiently chased him, and when he caught up, he slashed his longsword and hamstrung Jia Runda's right leg. Jia Runda fell down hard on the ground. Lin Pingzhi lifted his rein, and his horse stepped on Jia Runda's body. Jia Runda cried out miserably, but he didn't die. Lin Pingzhi laughed maniacally and turned his horse around to trample Jia Runda's body again. After a few more passes, Jia Runda was finally quiet. Lin Pingzhi didn't give the people of the Qingcheng school another glance before going besides Yue Lingshan and Ying Ying. He said to his wife, "Get on the horse." Yue Lingshan looked at him angrily. After a while, she gritted her teeth and said, "You go by yourself." "You? Why do you care?" Lin Pingzhi took a glance at the Hangshan school disciples and laughed coldly. Then he put his heels on his horse and gave its head. Ying Ying couldn't... Gave it what? We'll just read right past that. Ying Ying couldn't figure out why Lin Pingzhi was treating his newly wedded wife so indifferently, and she couldn't help feeling surprised. Ying Ying said, "Madam Lin, come to my carriage to rest." Both of Yue Lingshan's eyes were full of tears. and she tried her hardest not to let her tears flow down. She chokingly said, I'm I'm not going. Why did you save me? I didn't. It was your big martial brother Ling Hu Chong who saved you. Yue Lingshan felt sour in her heart and couldn't hold back her tears anymore as it flowed down her cheeks. Can I please ask you for a horse? All right. Ying Ying turned around to lead a horse over. Yue Lingshan stammered, Thank you, thank you. She jumped on the horse's back and went towards the east, opposite of where Lin Pingzhi had gone before. It seemed that she was going back to Songshan. Yu Changhai was surprised to see her galloping past, but he didn't pay her any attention. He thought, after another night, that animal Lin will come and will kill a few of my men again. He wants to kill my disciples one by one till I'm left all by myself before he comes for me. Oh, he does he? Oh, so he's using the exact same thing, the exact same strategy that you use against his family? Ling Hu Chong couldn't bear seeing Yu Changhai looking like he had lost his mind, so he ordered, Let's go. Yes, the person at the driver's seat answered. With a shout, the whip was cracked and the mule started to pull the carriage forward. Ling Hu Chong gasped in surprise. He saw Yue Lingshan was going to the east, so his heart automatically also wanted to go with her. But he didn't expect the mule carriage to be going towards the east. His heart sank, but he didn't order the mule carriage to turn around to go to the east. He opened the screen in the carriage and couldn't see Yue Lingshan anymore. His heart was heavy as he thought, She's been injured and she's going all by herself with no one to tend to her injuries. How's she going to fare? Suddenly, he heard Qin Chuan say, She's going back to Songshan to her parents. She's going to be safe there. You don't need to worry. Ling Hu Chong felt relieved and replied, Yes, while he thought, Martial Sister Qin is very observant. She even knew what I was thinking. At noon the next day, their party arrived at a small restaurant to eat their meals. This restaurant couldn't actually be regarded as a shop. It only consisted of a grass shed besides the main road, with many long tables placed underneath, and they offered tea and meals to the passer-by. When the Hangshan school people arrived, the shop didn't have too much rice left. Luckily, many people in the party were bringing rice with them, as well as tools like bowls, chopsticks, and etc. So they immediately cooked the rice besides the grass sheds. Ling Hu Chong had stayed in the carriage for a long time, and it was getting stuffy in there. With the Hangshan school's medicine taken internally and applied externally, Ling Hu Chong's injury had improved by a lot. Zheng Yu and Qin Juan supported him to get him down from the carriage and sit under the shed. He gazed towards the east and thought, Will little martial sister come? He then saw a cloud of dust as a group of people came from the east. They were Yu Changhai and his Qincheng school who had come to the shed, and they also dismounted from their horses to take their meals there. Yu Changhai sat alone at a table, unspeaking and with no expression on his face. He knew his life was doomed already, and he didn't even bother to avoid the people of Hangshan School. There really is no bigger matter than death. Regardless of how the Hangshan School people were going to see how he would die, he didn't care. Not long after, the sound of a galloping horse was heard coming from the west. The horse came slowly towards them, and on top of the horse was a person wearing a flowery gown who was really Lin Pingzhi. He reined in his horse outside the shed and saw that the Qincheng school people only gave him a look, then ignored him. Every person who was cooking his meal, while the ones drinking tea were drinking their teas. This situation was really beyond Lin Pingzhi's expectation. He laughed aloud and said, Ha 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 ha! Even if you're not going to fight, I'm still going to kill you. He jumped down from his horse and slapped the horse's buttock to get it to go eat some grass. He saw there were still 2 empty tables underneath the shed, so he went to one of them to sit. Once Lin Pingzhi had entered the shed, Ling Hu Chong sniffed a strong fragrance. Ling Hucheng then observed the clothes Lin Pingzhi was wearing and realized that the fragrant scent was coming from it. On Lin Pingzhi's hat was a piece of green jade. On his finger was a ruby ring, and on the tips of both of his shoes were 2 pearls. Now, this guy is a fashionable dude. He was dressed just like a young master from a rich family and didn't look anything like a warrior from Wulin. Ling Hucheng thought his family opened up the Fortune Prestige escort house, so he was originally a young master from a rich family. He has suffered a few years of hardships in Jianghu, so after he's gotten some skills, he's enjoying all those wealth now. He then saw Lin Pingzhi taking a piece of snow-white handkerchief out of his bosom and lightly dabbing his face with it. Lin Pingzhi's appearance was delicate and pretty. The way he took out his handkerchief, dabbed his face, and shook his clothes, it was just like an actor on stage playing the role of a pretty young woman. Remember, he's naturally really good, he's naturally really feminine, so his facial features were naturally feminine in the first place. So I'm betting right now he looks like an actual woman. Anytime a horse appears, you get worried. Yeah. I hope we don't see any more dead horses. After Lin Pingzhi had sat down, he lightly said, "Brother Ling Hu, you're well." "You're well?" Ling Hucheng nodded his head. Lin Pingzhi turned his head slightly and saw a Qingcheng disciple holding a pot of hot tea to give to Yu Changhai. "You're called Yu Ren Hao, aren't you? Years ago, when my whole family was killed, you were there too. Even when your face is ashen, I still recognize you." Yu Ren Hao dropped the teapot on the table, turned around, and suddenly with his hand already on his sword handle, and then retreated for 2 steps. "I'm Yu Ren Hao. What do you want?" His voice was rough, but it was trembling as he spoke, and his face had turned ghostly pale. "Yingxiang Hao Jie, the 4 aces of Qingcheng," Lin Pingzhi smiled. "You're number 3, but there's no aura of a hero at all. This is funny, really funny." Yingxiang Haojie, the 4 aces of Qingcheng, was the Qingcheng school's 4 disciples with the strongest martial arts. They were Hou Ren Ying, Huang Ren Xiong, Yu Ren Hao, and Luo Ren Jie. Among these people, one of them had been killed by Ling Hucheng in the Huaiyan wine house, while the remaining 3 were present at that moment. Lin Pingzhi laughed mockingly and said, "That brother Ling Hu once said, 'Dumb bear, wild pig, the 4 asses of Qingcheng. That's too good for you to be compared to animals, in my opinion.' You're even worse than animals." Yu Renhao was afraid and angry, and his face had turned even paler, but he didn't draw his sword out in spite of this. At this moment, the sound of galloping horses from the east was heard. 2 horses seemed to be galloping quickly coming over here. When they arrived in front of the shed, the person in front reined in his horse. Everyone turned around to have a look, and some people gasped in surprise at seeing that person. The person riding in front had a short and fat stature with a humpback, whose nickname was called Hunchback of the North, Mu Gao Feng. The person riding the horse at the back was unexpectedly Yue Lingshan. When Ling Hucheng saw Yue Lingshan, his chest felt hot and his heart was happy. But Yue Lingshan's hands were tied behind her back, and the rein to her horse was being led along by Mu Gao Feng. It was obvious she had been captured by him. "You run how?" Hey, good job, Nikki. Oh, that's a pretty bad name for that guy. They all have run in the middle, like for their middle name. He's a very pretty boy. He's a very pretty boy. True. Ling Hucheng couldn't bear not doing anything, and he was itching to do something. And his mind thought, Her husband is here. Why do they need an outsider to get involved? If her husband doesn't care, then I'll think of a way to save her. When Lin Pingzhe saw Mu Gaofeng was here, it was just like he had seen treasures falling down from the sky. He was deliriously happy. Lin Pingzhe pondered, the people who killed my father and mother also included this humpback. Yeah, remember, Mu Gaofeng actually killed his parents, right? At the very end. I never expected such a chance circumstance to happen today, and he has unexpectedly delivered himself here. The heavenly gods really have eyes. But Mu Gaofeng didn't recognize Lin Pingzhe. That day in Hangshan at Liu Zhengfeng's house, even though the two of them had met, Lin Pingzhe was disguised as a humpback, and his face was full of ointment. So, compared to the beautiful and adorned youngster who was sitting there, the two characters were completely different. Later on, Mu Gaofeng found out Lin Pingzhe's humpback was fake, but he never saw his real face at all. Mu Gaofeng turned his head around to say to Yue Lingshan, so I believe this guy has a very high voice. It's very rare to have so many friends here. Let's go. When he saw the people of Hangshan School and Qingcheng School there, he felt quite afraid and expected there would be people who would come out to help Yue Lingshan, so it would be better to remove himself from there as fast as possible. He shouted and led the horses out to get out of there. The day before, Yue Lingshan was injured and was on her way back to Mount Songshan alone to be by her father and mother. But not long into her journey, she met Mu Gaofeng. Mu Gaofeng was a narrow-minded person. He had lost to Yue Buchun when competing internal energy in the past. Then the Lin Zhinan husband and wife were also rescued by Yue Buchun, so he felt disgraced and really insulted. Later on, he heard Lin Zhinan's son, Lin Pingzhe, had joined the Huashan school and took Yue Buchun's daughter as his wife, so he naturally thought the evil-resisting sword art was also taken into the Huashan school, and he got really furious because of this. When the Five Mountains School was established, he, of course, heard the news, but the people of the Five Mountains Sword Schools didn't like him, and Zhuo Langchan didn't give him any invitation, so he got angry and hid nearby Mount Songshan to wait for the people of the Five Mountains School as they came down the mountain. If they were in a large group or if there was a senior, he wouldn't show himself, but if someone was alone, he was planning to vent his anger on that person. But as he observed the groups of people coming down the mountain, all of them were in groups of 10 or hundreds, so he couldn't do anything. So it was very convenient for him to suddenly see Yue Lingshan riding all by herself, and he immediately intercepted her. This dude has no idea what he's getting into. Nope. He's gonna be regretting his actions any moment now. Yue Lingshan's martial art was never as good as Mu Gaofeng. Added to that, she was injured, and because Mu Gaofeng ambushed her, he had the initiative. So, at the end, she was captured. When Mu Gaofeng heard her making threats to him, saying she was Yue Buchun's daughter, he was ecstatic, and a plan quickly hatched in his head. He was going to hide her in a secret place and then exchange her with the evil-resisting sword art. As he was hurrying along, he didn't expect they would meet with Qingcheng and Hangshan schools. Yue Lingshan thought, if I let him take me away now, who will rescue me then? Without giving a thought to her shoulder injury, she slanted her body and let herself fall down from the horse's back. What's the matter? Mu Gaofeng shouted and leapt off the horse. He then stooped down to grab Yue Lingshan's body from the back. Ling Huchang thought Lin Pingzhe wouldn't just stand aside on seeing his wife being insulted, but would definitely go out to help her. But who would have thought Lin Pingzhe didn't care at all? Lin Pingzhe took out a folding fan with a gold-painted handle from his left sleeve and lightly fanned himself. The jade-colored fan continuously shook. It was currently the 3rd month, and the northern snow was just beginning to melt. Who would use a fan at this time of year? But Lin Pingzhe was indeed using a fan, and leisurely fanning himself. Mu Gaofeng grabbed the back of Yue Lingshan's body and said,
Be careful falling down again.
Then he lifted his hand and dropped her onto her horse's saddle. He then jumped on his horse, wishing to go on their way.
Person surnamed Mu. Someone here said that your martial art is ordinary. What do you say to that?
Lin Pingzhi said. Mu Gaofeng was startled and saw Lin Pingzhi was sitting alone at a table. He didn't seem to belong to either to the Qincheng school or the Hengshan school. He also couldn't tell where he came from. So he asked,
Who are you?
Why do you ask me? The one who said your martial art is ordinary wasn't me. Lin Pingzhi smiled.
Who said it?
Lin Pingzhi slammed his fan closed and pointed it at Yu Canghai. That priest, you from Qincheng school, he just saw a really wonderful sword play, the world's #1 sword art. I think it was called the evil resisting sword art. When Mu Gaofeng heard the words evil resisting sword art, he was excited. He peered at Yu Canghai and saw him holding a teacup, looking absent-minded, as if he was hearing but wasn't listening to what Lin Pingzhi was saying.
Priest Yu, congratulations on seeing the evil resisting sword art. It's not fake.
And that's it. Chapter over. Did you guys like that? Okay. So a lot of things happened in this chapter. Looks like so we see Lin Pingzhi again, and he is super powerful now. Okay. He learned the evil resisting sword art, and so did Yue Buchun. Okay, so they both looks like they both learned the evil resisting sword art. We're not sure how yet. And now he's finally getting his revenge, and he's really squeezing all the revenge out of this, right? He's doing the same thing that Yu Canghai did to his family, which is killing the people of the Qincheng school one by one, right? Until only Yu Canghai is left, and then he plans to kill him. And for some reason, Lin Pingzhi, who was already feminine before, he's really feminine now. Okay, he's super feminine now. Yes, and then some poor horse died. Some innocent horse died for no reason. Okay, that wasn't cool at all. All right, pick a freaking song. Pick a song. Pick a song. We're gonna be doing one karaoke song. Let me think. Let me grab a drink. Cheers. Do I know the song Horse with No Name? No. Is that a joke? Live and Let Die. What is Live and Let Die? Is that a James Bond thing? It sounds like a James Bond song or a James Bond movie. Wild Horses. I don't know that song. You guys know a lot of songs. Beep, beep. It's a song by America. Oh, a band from the 70s. Okay, yeah, I wouldn't know. Dum, dum, dum. Okay, which song would I know? Yeah, that's totally before my time. Dun, 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 dun. I got it from Agnes. I don't know that one either. Oh, anything by Britney Spears. Crap. I do know Britney Spears songs. What Britney Spears song? Ah, crap. You gonna make me do this? You guys know the song Every Time? That's a little bit too slow though. I don't know if you want me to sing that. There's Oops, I Did It Again. What's her other famous song? Britney Spears. Oh, Baby One More Time, obviously. Do I think Britney Spears was used for money by her dad? I think it's pretty clear that she was, right? Yeah, wasn't there some news about Britney Spears? I think her so she had a conservatorship, like a conservatorship that was run by her dad. Yeah, so he basically controlled all her money and what she did. But I think that's over now, right? Let's see. Britney Spears conservator. Yeah, Britney Spears' father, Jamie Spears, agrees to step down from the conservatorship. I don't know what that means though. Like, can she control her finances now or not? Toxic? Oh, do I know that song? I probably heard of it before. But I don't think I know it. I will have to sing My Little Pony. What is My Little Pony? Is it the theme song of that show? Alright, Baby One More Time. I can do that. Alright, let's choose between that or Oops, I Did It Again. Alright, give me. Alright, it's either Oops, I Did It Again or Baby One More Time. He has things they have to do before he steps down. So he hasn't stepped down yet. But I think he said he would, right? So we still don't know. That sucks for her. All right. Okay. It looks like "Oops, I Did It Again" is the song. All right. All right. Hit me one more time, or one more sip of my drink. All right. God damn it. All right. It's "Oops, I Did It Again." Okay. "Oops, I Did It Again." This might be a song that I only know the chorus of.
Here's the deal with the recall of Gavin Newsom. We've seen Trump Republicans across the country.
All right. All right. Oh, it's coming back to me. It's coming back to me.